idea that, we are going to sin while we are growing. We're going to make mistakes while we're growing. Nothing wrong with that as long as we keep growing. But there is a point where if we don't keep growing, guess what happens? Guess what happens if we don't keep growing? Guess what happens if we don't keep growing? We eventually grow cold and lukewarm and fall into a religious mindset again. We might have ourselves convinced that I'm okay. I'm still doing the bare minimum over here. I'm still praying and reading, and I'm still, going to church groups and whatnot. But I am definitely I'm losing it. I'm starting to fade. I'm starting to get, why am I doing that? And it's always sin. It's always because we're not allowing God to purge that thing, whatever that thing might be. It's different for everybody. There's always something God wants to purge out of our lives and heart until we have become perfect, because the scriptures teaches us that He wants to come back for a perfect and mature church. And we should not want to die until we are purged and perfect. We don't want to die in any kind of perpetual or practice of sin. We want to give it all to God, or at least be giving it to God with tears, or at least be fasting about it in a way that God can see, okay, this is a pure heart before me. This is a pure heart before me. And I do believe that it will be the power and grace of God when we get to that point where we are fighting against sin, fighting it with the best faithfulness that I have, because I do believe the striving and the pressing forward and all the work that I'm doing and all the effort that I'm doing can be a faithful endeavor and can be pleasing to God if it follows after the pattern of Christ. Because we can waste our time trying to work our way to heaven and try to overcome sin in ways that are not just simply never going to work, and keep struggling with the same sin over and over because somehow we have not really found God's way. There's a way that seems right to a man, and it seems like it's going to work, and maybe it works for a while, and then eventually the sin just sort of it's still there, it's hidden, it's hiding, it's moving around, but it manifests itself, and I keep falling into it over and over, and eventually, if I don't get past it, it's going to drag me down. Eventually, I'm going to fall back into lukewarmness, and eventually, I'm going to start falling away from God again. So if we don't keep growing and we don't keep pressing forward, it's a vicious cycle for many people. And who knows when God's eventually going to stop that Ferris wheel and that little hamster wheel from going around and around and around and around in your life, and then He's finally done and He cuts a person off and they have no more opportunity because their life has come to an abrupt end.